So was your great-grandma a bootlegger? If she had this book, I bet she was. This is the Pastime Cooking. If you follow my channel, you know I've been cooking my way through our family's old collection of recipes. And today, I pulled out this little gem of a cookbook called Pabst Blue Ribbon Baking Recipes. And even though it's a little cookbook, it provides a big wallop of history. Imagine, it's 1920, and the Volstead Act, which is what led to Prohibition, passes. And if you're any number of small brewing companies or large brewing companies like Pabst, your number one seller is suddenly illegal. You start by changing your identity to a baking company. That's what almost every brewing company in the United States did at that time. Prohibition lasted 13 years, and all it really did was turn millions of Americans into home brewers. Because although you could make alcohol illegal, you couldn't make everything used to make alcohol illegal. Otherwise, you would have had to have banned the entire food system. And that actually went to court, by the way. They tried to ban the use of malt extract and malt syrup. But since you couldn't ban corn and apples or any kind of fruit, you couldn't really ban malt syrup or malt extract either. Exactly what is malt? So, to be honest with you, I had no idea until I started making a couple of these recipes. This is basically sprouted barley grains. And to make the syrup, you then extract the sugar from that and then dehydrate it into a syrup, kind of in the same way that you make evaporated milk. Or you dehydrate it and grind it and make it into a powder that you would put in, like, say, Whoppers or malted milk. Malt is actually kind of healthy. It has a lot of vitamins and minerals, especially the B vitamins. So now suddenly all of these brewing companies are recommending that you put malt extract or malt syrup in a variety of things. Everything from cakes to stews to cookies and even your child's milk. It's estimated that at one time during Prohibition, 450 million pounds of malt syrup and malt extract were created, sold throughout the United States. And 90% of that went into home brew. Because if you have your malted syrup and then you have some yeast and some water, well, then you have alcohol. Now, the malt syrup really did have a few other benefits. It did contain a lot of vitamins and minerals, and it really did come in handy when making cakes and cookies. It provided a really good kind of sweet flavor. It could be used as a sugar substitute. Could be put into infant's formula. Malt syrup has been used for quite a few things over the years, dating all the way back to the 1700s when the British Army attempted to feed their soldiers with it in long overseas voyages. They say it didn't taste very good because the old processes of making malt weren't very good and it ended up having a burnt flavor. By the time the 1920s and 1928, when this little booklet was produced, malt had a pretty good flavor. Now, according to this 1928 booklet, it said that adding malt to your bread would actually help it rise better and brown better. Cut down this bread recipe that called originally for 12 cups of bread. I cut it down by a third. And I will say that the malt did help it to rise quicker. I would say it cut the rising time down by about probably 25 to 30%. I don't really think that it helped the bread to brown any better, but it did have a really good flavor, and I didn't put but 1 tablespoon of sugar in the entire recipe. I got to eat twice as much bread because of all the vitamins and minerals. I mean, it only made sense, right? It's much healthier than regular bread. But all in all, I think this is a great little cookbook. I liked the bread, and I loved the little molasses cakes. If you see this old recipe book in your great-grandma or your grandma's collection, my guess is she had a secret. So all in all, I liked the malt syrup, and I say bring this bread recipe past to present.